All right, today we're going to get into something that's actually super important in the world of finance, and it all comes from these handwritten notes. We're going to explore what happens when a check you've written gets changed without you knowing. And trust me, the rules are incredibly strict for a very good reason. So just imagine this for a second. You write a check to someone for, say, $100. Simple enough. But then, somewhere along the line, somebody sneakily adds a zero. Bam! Suddenly it's a check for $1,000. Is that even legal? Are you on the hook for that extra $900? This is the exact situation we're going to unpack. You know, in the legal world, they have a name for this. It's called material alteration. And this isn't just like fixing a typo. Oh no. This is a fundamental change to a legal document, and it can unleash some really serious financial and legal headaches for everyone involved, from you, the person who wrote the check, all the way to the bank that cashes it. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty, starting with the big, overarching rule that governs these situations. It really all boils down to a specific legal principle, and you can find it right in Section 87 of the Negotiable Instruments Act. Think of this as the rule book for things like checks. So what is a material alteration, really? Well, think of it as any change that completely messes with the original deal. We're talking about changing the dollar amount, the date, who it's paid to, basically anything that changes the legal duties of the people involved. And the law takes this super seriously because, let's be honest, our whole system of commerce kind of depends on these pieces of paper being trustworthy. And here it is. This is the absolute key takeaway. The general rule is as strict as it gets. If a material alteration is made to a check, that check becomes completely, totally void. It's basically just a worthless piece of paper at that point. It's like it never even existed. Now check out the direct language from the law itself. Section 87 says the check is void against anyone who is part of the deal at the time the change happened, and, this is the most important part, who didn't agree to it. So if you didn't say yes to that extra zero being added, the law is on your side. You are not bound by that change, period. But, like any good legal story, there's a plot twist. It's not always so black and white, especially when the banks get involved. There's a huge exception to this rule, and it's basically designed to protect them. Let's see how this works. Yeah, try to see it from the bank's point of view for a second. A check for $1,000 lands on the teller's desk. It looks perfect. The handwriting is clean, the signature seems to match. How on earth are they supposed to know that it started its life as a check for $100? Should the bank have to eat that loss? So the law makes this really critical distinction, and you can see it right here in these court cases. On one hand, if a change is super obvious, you can see smudged ink or something's clearly been erased and written over, then the bank is on the hook. Why? Because they didn't make what's called a payment in due course, which just means paying a check that looks legit. But if the alteration is practically invisible, a masterpiece of forgery, then the law actually protects the bank. And this right here is the magic phrase, pulled straight from the notes, not visible to naked eye. This is the legal shield that protects the bank. If they acted in good faith and the forgery was just that good, they're covered. And in that case, the person who originally wrote the check might actually be the one who has to take the hit, especially if they were a bit careless in how they wrote it. Okay, so all of these old principles are still the foundation of the law, but honestly, things got a whole lot simpler thanks to a modern directive. To cut through all this confusion in the digital age, the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, just stepped in with a new set of rules. And the year that everything changed was 2010. This year was a huge shift away from that old case-by-case analysis to a much more straightforward, one-size-fits-all approach for handling altered checks across India. What happened was, the RBI issued new guidelines for something called the Check Truncation System, or CTS. Now, all that really means is that banks started scanning checks and processing the digital images instead of moving all the physical paper around. But think about it, a scanned image can't tell you if a change was authorized or not, so any alteration became a massive problem. And the RBI's solution was just to lay down a new crystal clear rule. And that modern rule is just incredibly simple. If there is any alteration, any correction on that check, the bank is supposed to reject it. That's it. The only real solution is for the person to tear it up and issue a completely fresh, clean check. No more scratching things out and initialing it. Those days are over. Well, I did say no more scratching things out, but there is one tiny but very important exception to this no alterations rule. And it all comes down to the power of putting your signature on it again.
The RBI guidelines are tough, but they do allow for one specific change. You are allowed to alter or correct the date. So if you write the wrong date by mistake, you can fix it. But, and listen, this part is absolutely non-negotiable, you have to put your full signature right next to that change. That signature is your proof that you, the original writer, authorized it. Any other change? Nope, that check is invalid. So, let's just boil this all down real quick. What are the big takeaways? First, any major change to a check without everyone's permission makes it void. Simple as that. Second, banks get a protective shield if a forgery is so good you can't see it with the naked eye. Third, the modern RBI rule is basically, when in doubt, just write a fresh check. And finally, the one and only exception is changing the date, but only if you sign right next to it.
And you know, all of this leads to one final thought. In an age where we have instant digital payments, QR codes, and constant transfers, are these incredibly detailed rules for paper checks, forged signatures, and visible alterations, are they becoming a fascinating but fading piece of legal history? That's definitely something to think about.